Welcome, friends, to Breakfast in the Ruins, a Michael Moorcock flavoured podcast. Loz is back with me and Derry and Toms to pick up part 3 of The Fortress of the Pearl, wherein we conclude our reread and re-evaluation of the 1989 Elric novel that we haven't read since its original release. I think it's fair to say we might have had it all wrong for over 30 years. After the hour mark, we also get a bit gamey and reflect upon the dreaming world as portrayed in Elric RPGs. As always, we're accompanied on our journey by some suitably disturbing beer, and this one was as eldritch as they come. So settle in, smoke some dried fire beetles, and join us as we pass through the final gate and, for the last time, enter the Fortress of the Pearl. Okay, so we're back in Derry and Toms, of course, and Loz is here. Hello, Loz.
Hi.
And we're back to do Fortress of the Pearl Part 3. Huzzah!
Hooray!
It's only been a few months.
It's nearly finished.
Yeah, now before we recap Parts 1 and 2, briefly, I think we'd better just launch straight into what we're drinking. I mean, we've just had the last of the... What was it? I forgot what it's called. Rabbit Pants Black IPA. Yeah. You'll be happy to know that is the only dark beer, stroke black beer, that's anywhere near this kitchen. Although I'm sure if you look at the beer corner or the booze corner, there's probably some hidden in there.
It's very
somewhere.
nice.
But that black IPA is great.
It's quality.
But right now, we're on the very attractively labelled Rapunzel Belgian Style Blonde.
We are.
7.1% by volume. It's by... Who is it? Can't read it. The writing's fucking tiny. Tartarus.
Yeah.
Tartarus beers.
And it's vegan.
Yeah.
Which is great.
I haven't tried it yet, so let's go in there and give it a look.
I have tried it. It reminds me of a Saison.
That's actually really nice.
Yeah,
and
it's good, yeah.
You wouldn't know at this temperature that it's a 7.1% beer.
No, it's quite pleasant.
Mm.
We might do by the end of the class.
Yes. And, of course, what we've got to remember is that whilst we decided to have a moratorium on ridiculously disgusting, syrupy, dark stouts and porters for a while.
We did.
I have managed to isolate a particularly challenging, I expect, IPA of some description in order to at least maintain some of our tradition.
Yeah.
And here we have it. So let's go. I'll pass that one to you.
Jesus.
I think...
Oh, hello.
Yeah, I think it's only traditional.
Oh, good God.
Yes, that as we're still in the dream realms,
Yes.
then why not have the great dreamer on board himself? Cthulhu. So Lovecraft was bound to feature on Breakfast in the Ruins at some point, but little did we know it would be in the form of an eldritch shanity shattering. Sanity shattering.
Yes.
But it's a very nice label.
It is. It's called Cthulhu.
It's called Cthulhu. It's also vegan.
It is. It's also a West Coast Teeper.
So what's a
type here?
What's a TIPA? Yeah, me neither.
No.
It's by Tartarus Beers
I've got
also,
nothing.
and it's 12%.
Yeah, so that's a good thing.
Which is pretty fucking horrifying.
Yeah.
I think we should possibly put them back in the fridge until we've drunk these, because frankly, if this gets anywhere near room temperature, it's going to taste like brake fluid.
Yeah, it may actually kill us.
Yeah.
It does actually mention that on the label.
So just stand by while I just pop these back.
Yeah, that will be marvellous.
Yeah.
Oh.
So while I'm popping these back in the fridge, why don't you recap what has gone before?
Well, what's gone before is the Fortress of the Pearl Parts 1 and 2, where me and Mr. Stimson have discussed in great detail the book and drank beer.
Yeah.
I think that's probably the summary
That
everybody
probably
needed.
But
Yeah.
I suppose we better talk about the story very briefly.
We do, yeah. So, Elric, he arrives in Quashat.
Quasar. Yeah.
Bit worse for wear. The Quasar Empire fought the Bright Empire of Melniboné.
Yeah. He's still on his gap year.
He is on his gap year, yeah.
He's on his post-Elric of Melniboné gap year.
Before he goes back to Emir and has a bit of a fight.
Yeah.
Yerkun's on the throne. Cimmeril's going, what you on about? Why have you disappeared for a year? And he's ended up in this desert place, in the Sighing Desert.
Mm-hmm.
Bit worse for wear. Gets a bit tricked by Lord Go,
Lord Gurfazi.
Yeah,
The Rotter.
who's basically there's a strange kind of is it the 6-1?
Yeah, the 6-1, the council, and
Yeah.
Lord Gur desperately wants power.
Yeah.
He wants to impress the rest of the council, and he wants a certain artifact.
Which is the aforementioned pearl.
The pearl, which sits in
the heart
fortress
of the world.
of the pearl, the heart of the world.
So it's a massive pearl. Nobody knows much about it. So that happens. Elric gets tricked into drinking some elixir, which is poisonous.
Yep.
And Lord Go goes, get me the pearl, otherwise you're going to die. And I'll also steal your current servant, Ni, is it?
Yeah, the little boy Anai, so he's at risk as well.
Yep. So Elric goes off on his quest, meets some fire beetles, has a few fights, goes to Glastonbury.
Yep.
And then
kills a large sorcerer of adventurers.
Yep. And finds out there's the holy girl is trapped in the dream world.
And she's in the bronze tent.
She is in the bronze tent of the blood moon. Elric goes there, finds out it is a bit like Glastonbury. There's lots of, jugglers, dancers, that kind of thing. Goes there, offers his services. We forgot about Alnec Kreb, who...
so Rael Nassim...
He's the holy
girl's dad. He wants his help. He thinks that Elric is part of some deal that he's made with a dream thief to come and sort things out. Elric's bulked into Alnec Kreb. We liked Alnec Kreb. We liked the cut of his jib. Sadly, it all goes a little bit wrong. When he tries to enter the girl's dreams, he withers up like an old husk.
Yeah, he let himself and the holy girl down, I think, there. He peaked too early. And then Una appears, and she is the dream thief
that they were expecting. Little did they know. Alnec Kreb was a friend of hers, but not particularly experienced, but she's the real deal.
She does. She comes in and goes, no, wait, I'll bring back the holy girl. Varadia, isn't it? And Elric goes, yeah, I'll go as well, it'll be ace.
Yeah. So off they go and have adventures.
They do. They go into the dream world with surreal and strange consequences.
Yeah, and it's all fairly entertaining. It's all good fun. Moorcock is very much in deconstruction mode, deconstructing the tropes of fantasy and his own tropes as well.
Yep.
And to cut a very long story short, they have some adventures. They encounter the Pearl Warrior, who may be some aspect of Alnec Kreb.
Could
they
be.
Encounter a rabbit in trousers.
Yeah, the trousered rabbit.
Trousered rabbit.
He wasn't very good, was he?
No, and he came a cropper.
He did.
Yeah. And they come across
Lady
a guy
Stout.
who wants to eat their livers.
Yeah, liver guy.
Liver guy.
Yeah.
Give me your liver.
Yeah.
And Queen Sow turns up, helps them out. They wonder if Queen Sow is the Holy Girl's mother.
Yeah.
But eventually they pass through all 5 of these lands of
the
X.
dream. Yeah. All rhyming.
Land of kebabs.
Yeah.
Land of black pudding.
Yeah, there was probably something to do with sheep, I would have thought.
And they end up in the Land of Madness.
They do. The Land of Madness surprisingly has a few issues.
Yeah. But we've finally got there. We've got through the quest. They're in the Land of Madness. Queen Sow has seen them through the portal. They got away from the oddball that was after eating their livers. The Pearl Warrior, actually, they ended up fighting together to fight off some menace.
They did.
And then they get through the portal. So, long story short, they have arrived in the Land of Madness, where they will find the Fortress of the Pearl.
They do.
So part 3 kicks off with an extract from the Chronicle of the Black Sword.
It does.
Yeah. I think you should read it, Loz. Now, it's up to you whether you read it in the style of Hugh Grant from a shit Guy Ritchie film. I'm not going to say that it's a prerequisite. I'll leave it to you.
I think it'd be rude not to.
Okay, go on.
So, bear with me. So, the people who haven't watched Operation Fortune on Prime.
Yeah, you don't need to. Just listen to the next 30 seconds.
This is probably a synopsis of the best bit of the whole film.
Yeah.
So, here we go. And I apologise for anybody from London.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is there a brave lord, birthed by fate, to wield our weapons, win new estates, and tear down the walls time sanctifies, raise ancient temples as hallowed lies? His pride to break, his love to love, destroying his race, his history, his muse, and requisition and peace for a life of strife, leave only a corpse that flies refuse. Now, for me, apart from my inaccuracy in a certain couple of words, is it's the poetry in fantasy books trope. Why do it, please? It doesn't enhance anything.
Well, I've got to say, Lawrence, whilst I like the cut of your jib, and the delivery was very good.
Thank you very much.
It's a bit of a shit poem.
It is a bit of a shit poem. To be fair, I might have crucified some of the iambic pentameter, but there we go.
Yeah.
So I'll stop doing that now, and I do apologise to Hugh Grant, his agent, and anybody out there from London.
You know what? No apologies necessary. Yeah. Recap in place. Poem read. Yeah. Chronicle of the Black Sword out of the way.
Yeah.
Chapter 1. At the Court of the Pearl. Again, Elric experienced that strange frisson of recognition at the landscape before him, though he could not remember ever seeing anything like it. Pale blue mist rose around cypresses, date palms, orange trees, and poplars, whose shades of green were equally pale. Flowing meadows occasionally revealed the rounded white of boulders, and in the far distance were snow-peaked mountains. It was as if an artist had painted the scenery with the most delicate of washes, the finest of brushstrokes. It was a vision of paradise, and completely unexpected after the insanity of Falador.
Do you know what that reminds me of? Bob Ross.
Ah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm thinking I really like this. I'm going to read the second paragraph as well, but I really like these two paragraphs. It's like Dunsany, but lean and efficient and less flowery in the way it evokes this landscape that they're passing through, this fantastic landscape. Or it's like something from Lud in the Mist, but a little bit more exotic. Queen Sow had remained silent since she had answered Elric's question, and a peculiar atmosphere had developed between the three of them. Yet all the uneasiness failed to affect Elric's delight at the world they had entered. The skies, if skies there were full of pearly cloud, tinged by pink and the faintest yellow, and a little white smoke rose up from the flat-roofed house some distance away. The barge had come to rest in a pool of still, sparkling water, and Queen Sow gestured for them to disembark. So I really like that. It's a really lovely introduction. And again, it's whilst Moorcock does lots of nice descriptions of places that Elric visits in the world, this once again, as we've commented in the previous two parts, is a little bit more whimsical, a little bit more soft, a little bit more fantastical. But I must say, when first of all, there's the description of the house.
Did you have the...
I thought for a second, is this going to be Mrs. House?
Yeah, I thought that as well.
I breathed a sigh of relief when it wasn't.
At one point I was like, all right, good. Yeah, thank the Lord for that.
Yeah.
And I can't remember what book that's from.
I think it's one of the Moonbeam Roads trilogy.
Yeah, I think it is.
Yeah.
Mrs. House.
Mrs. House,
Not for everyone.
We'll get to that one day. We did reference Mrs. House in episode 0.
I think we probably did.
Yeah, but we've never revisited it yet, so we'll get to it. So it all looks pretty mellow. Elric asks Queen Sow where the fortress is. She says, whoever's in that cottage will tell you.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, okay, cool. They walk over to the cottage. Elric's maybe getting a little bit complacent again. Yeah. So Una's warning him about the rules of Dreamland again.
Yeah.
This is the land of madness. Madness can take many forms. Where it says, Una was the first to reach the door of the White House. Outside were 2 chickens scratching in the gravel. An old dog tethered to a barrel who looked up at them over a grey muzzle and grinned. So you're right, dogs can look.
Yeah, exactly.
A pair of short-coated cats cleaning their silvery fare on the roof over the lintel. Una knocked and the door was opened almost immediately. A tall, handsome young man stood there, his head covered by an old burnous, his body clad in a light brown robe with long sleeves. He seemed pleased to see visitors.
He did. What's a burnous?
A burnous? Had to look it up.
Yeah.
A burnous is like a Middle Eastern robe with a hood.
All right, cool.
So he's kind of in monkish garb.
Yeah.
Greetings to you, he said. I am Chemog Baum, currently in exile. Have you come with good news from the court? We have no news at all, I fear, said Una. We are travellers and we seek the Fortress of the Pearl. Is it close by here? At the heart and centre of those mountains, he waved with his hand toward the peak. Will you join me for some refreshment?
Yeah, and then he knocks up some herbal drinks.
Yeah.
So when I was reading this, I was like, Shamog Baum. Have I heard of him before?
This is exactly what I was thinking. Generally, when there's a stupid name in Moorcock, it's an anagram of some description.
Yeah.
But I scratched my head, and I cannot for a second think what that could be an anagram of.
No, I don't either.
So anybody who's listening, answers on a postcard.
And it's another Michael Moorcock, especially in this book, random larker thrown in for whatever reason.
Oh, we kind of find out why.
Yeah, we do,
later
right,
on, don't we? But even Elric's thinking, I recall this name. Why is this name so familiar? And he thinks that he only recently heard it. Baum is attired like an Eastern monk, complete with hood. We find out he's a defrocked knight of the court of the Pearl. And Elric realises that he has dim memories of hearing stories in Quasar art of this fella, but he understood them to date back 1,000 years.
Yeah.
So he's like almost a mythical, like, story book character of Quasar's history.
Indeed.
Who fought against the Bright Empire.
He did.
But it turns out to be quite a chance meeting, because whilst he attires them with some swish gear, Baum and Elric have an exchange. And it starts, Chamog Baum's gifts continued in the shape of 2 grey horses, which he led from their stable at the back of the house. These are Taran and Tadia, brother and sister. They were twin foals. They have never been separated. Once I rode them into battle. Once I took up arms against the Bright Empire. Now the last emperor of Melniboné will ride in my place to fulfil my destiny and end the siege of the Fortress of the Pearl.
You know me. Elric looked hard at the handsome youth, seeking deception or even irony, but there was none in those steady eyes.
A hero knows another, Prince Elric, and Chamog Baum reached out to grip Elric's forearm in the gesture of friendship of the desert peoples. May you gain all you wish to gain, and may you do so with honour. You too, Lady Una, your courage is the greatest of all. Farewell. And he sees them off.
He does.
There's a sense that perhaps, you always get that sense with the language when Moorcock, certainly in the latter stages of the Eternal Champion books, that whenever there's a champion recognises another champion, there's always like an insinuation that this could be another aspect of the Eternal Champion who once fought in the service of Quasar against Chaos.
War against Chaos.
Yeah, possible.
Might have been a bit rubbish, though.
May well have been a bit rubbish. Certainly failed in this respect.
He did, yeah.
Yeah, because he's been defrocked and he's basically just giving them directions. Moorcock loves his little seeds and details that add to that overall tapestry.
He does.
It's always a little bit of fun, even when they're kind of fairly throwaway characters. And we don't really see a great deal of him, although he does recur a little bit further down the line.
He does, but ultimately, yeah, what's he on about?
Yeah.
Why is he there? And does it add anything to the story? Possibly not.
Well, this has been the theme throughout the Fortress of the Pearl, hasn't it?
Yeah.
That there's all these little bits and pieces, all these little bits and pieces of detail, characters that pop in and pop out, Jasper Collinardus popping in and popping out. It doesn't really add anything other than colour in the tapestry.
Yeah.
And add little details. And that's more and more the way I think about Fortress of the Pearl, is it's like looking at a big rug with lots of detail on it. And there's a little fella over here with it's a rabbit in pants.
Yeah.
Jousting at trees, tilting at trees.
Yeah.
Oh no, look, there's a little bit, his head's been chopped off. Unlucky poor rabbit bloke. And that's what the Fortress of the Pearl is like. It's like a big rich tapestry of detail, but I think as we go, the strings are drawn and it comes together.
It does
next
at the
couple of
end,
chapters.
yeah. It does make more sense.
Yeah. So now they're travelling down marble roads towards the mountains where they hope to find the fortress, and there is a little exchange between Elric and Una. The road, when they reached it, proved to be of pure marble, but the horses' hoofs were so well shod they did not slip once. The noise of their galloping began to echo through the wide pass, and herds of gazelles and wild sheep looked up from their grazing to watch them pass. 2 silver riders on silver horses, on their way to do battle with the forces who had seized power at the Fortress of the Pearl.
You've understood these people better than I, he said to Una, as the road began to twist towards the centre of the range, and the light had grown colder, the sky a bright, hard grey. Do you know what we might expect to find at the Fortress of the Pearl?
She shook her head in regret. It is like understanding a code without knowing what the words actually relate to, she told him. The force is powerful enough to banish a hero as potent as Chamog Baum.
I know only the legend, and from that little I heard in the slave market at Quasar.
He was summoned by the Holy Girl as soon as she realised that she was under further attack. This is what I believe, at any rate. She did not expect him to fail her. Somehow, indeed, he made matters worse. She felt betrayed by him and banished to the edge of the nameless land, there perhaps to greet and assist others who might come to help her. That is no doubt why we are given all the appurtenances of the hero, so that we may be as much like heroes as he.
Yet we know this world less well. How may we succeed where he has failed?
Perhaps because of our ignorance, she said. Perhaps not. I cannot answer you, Elric. She rode close to him, leaning from her saddle to kiss that part of his cheek exposed by the helmet. Only know this. I will neither betray her, nor, if I can help it, you. Yet if I must betray one of you, I suppose it will be you.
Elric looked at her in bafflement. Is that likely to be an issue?
She shrugged and then she sighed. I do not know, Elric. Look, I think we've come to the Fortress of the Pearl.
How handy. I was going to get a bit
Could have got a bit awkward there, couldn't it?
Yeah.
I like the idea that in the first part of that, Moorcock really deconstructs the idea of the fantasy MacGuffin in a couple of lines, which is quite cool. She said, it's like understanding a code without knowing what the words actually relate to. Because he said, do you know what we might expect to find at the Fortress of the Pearl? It's like, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter if it's a pearl, or a record, or a jar of fucking pickled onions.
Yeah, the red hat of Pat Ferry.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just more flavour. But Elric wonders how they can succeed where Baum has failed. And this bit where Una suggests... It kind of comes out of the blue when she says, well, you know what, I will be faithful to the Holy Grail and to you, to a point.
Yeah, and then sorry about that.
Yeah. I kind of thought that was foreshadowing.
A little bit.
But it's only foreshadowing if you look at it in a certain light, and there is a little piece at the end of the epilogue, which we'll get to, that you could read in a way that could be a form of betrayal, but we'll get to it.
But potentially, I think I think that is a discussion point, isn't it?
Yeah.
Betrayal after what happened.
Yeah. But anyway, we're at the fortress suddenly.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool. Elric's impressed.
It's very nice. Reminds me of home.
To pass the gates, though, they have to face, once again...
Oh, way up.
It's the Pearl Warrior again.
He's back.
And I was quite amused by this, because he talks some nonsensical jive.
It's just a bit confusing.
And Elric having none of it, so just like, I'm going to fight you.
Yeah.
I've got no time for this garbage that's coming out of your mouth.
I'm going to hit you real good.
Yeah, so I'm going to pile in. We're going to have a scrap. So the fight, it's not Elric who gets the best of him, it's Una. Una gets the best of him.
She does, and that brings us back to the point of who's the real hero in the book.
Yeah.
It's Una, isn't it?
Yeah.
And the fact that he's describing this manoeuvre as going down in history.
Yeah, he's so impressed.
Yeah.
This spear-stroke-sword manoeuvre.
Yeah, I'm not...
Which cracks the breastplate.
It does.
But there's a really brilliant bit where, before that actually happens, the Pearl Warrior sneers a snide insult at Elric.
Yeah.
He goes, ordinary soul!
Yeah. The lips twisted in this insult, clearly as disgusting as any you can conceive.
Which is a fantastic insult.
Yeah.
I'm going to use it.
Yeah, I think we should.
I'm going to use it, as well as bad beef.
Bad beef.
I'm going to use that
an ordinary
as
soul.
a handy barb at work.
Yeah.
If I'm in a Teams meeting and someone upsets me, I'm either going to call them bad beef, I'm going to say you're bad beef, or I'm going to shriek at them with a sneer that they are just an ordinary soul.
Or you could just say, you ordinary soul.
Yeah.
I'll just leave it at that.
But if you say it like that, people might mistake it for a compliment. I think you've got to do it with a shriek and a sneer.
Yeah, but you're probably right.
Ordinary soul!
Well, it's like twisted lips. You need to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they're in.
So, should we comment on the Marvel strategy of Una?
I'm not convinced.
No, I'm not convinced either. And he began to chuckle again, this time because Una was riding at him, her sword stretched out before her, a spear held in her hand, her reins between her teeth, which is quite tricky to do.
Yeah.
Tried it once.
That's quite
in
impressive.
Barnsley. The sword drove forward, the spear swung back as poised to throw, then sword and spear struck the Pearl Warrior at exact the same moment, so his breastplate cracked like the shell of some great crustacean and was pierced by the sword. Elric marvelled at the strategy, which he had never witnessed before. It was a feat of arms warriors would speak of for 1,000 years to come, which many would try and emulate and would die in the trying. Not my words, the words of Elric.
Yeah.
He was well impressed.
I can't help thinking that the sword held out in one hand and the spear in the left is like the equivalent of going, whoa, distracting someone with your right hand while you poke them with your left.
Yeah.
Like, oh, look at my hand. Oh.
But she drew it back to throw.
Mm-hmm.
So he was going, oh, she's going to throw it.
Mm.
I'm not getting it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, for 1,000 years to come, people will be discussing that.
Yeah. You know, a bit of hyperbole there from Elric.
Yeah. Not entirely, yeah.
But it is a dream. He does fancy Una. Maybe he's just talking it all up.
Yeah, yeah.
Maybe it was truly impressive. You just had to be there.
Yeah,
Just don't know.
Which we weren't, sadly.
But the Pale Warrior's dumped. They're in. Una nicks Pale Warrior's sword.
Yeah, but he groaned, he cackled, he floundered. That's the way for a man to go, isn't it? Or woman.
Well, he flounders off.
He flounces off.
Yeah. So they wander through this massive fortress cum city for a while. Multiple courtyards, not many people around.
Yeah.
And then weird people start bombarding them with blood from high galleries.
Which is a bit unusual, I think.
Yeah.
Possibly a metaphor.
And again, hugely amused by this, trapped up to the knees in blood in a courtyard, Elric panics.
Yeah.
And he's pulling at the bar, he's trying to lift the bar, and Una reaches past him and presses a button. And the doors swing open.
That amused me.
Like, Elric gets mocked for not understanding button-operated gates. What a fucking goof.
They probably didn't have him in, Imria, did they? Like,
well, you know what, Imria fancies itself pretty much, but they ain't got button-operated gates, have they?
And I like the fact she grinned at him. Like most men, you become a brute when you panic, my lord. He was hurt by her joke. I had no idea she'd find such a means of opening the gate, my lady. I've never come across a button before. Bit defensive there.
Yeah. They have a few more trials to face. Bit of an earthquake.
Yeah.
Some other stuff.
Yeah.
It's all good. But then they soon meet a bloke who is the seneschal.
He is the
of
seneschal,
Pearl.
which is always a great word.
Yeah. And he tries to buy them off with some gold.
Yeah, he looks bewildered there, doesn't he?
But Una's having none of it. So she presses on. He's like, but gold. She's like, oh, I don't want any gold. Better things. Whereas Elric's going,
quite like gold.
Gold. Once again...
If Moonglum was there, he'd be well taken.
Moonglum going, what are you on about, Elric? This'll pay for our breakfast and our breakfast wine for weeks.
Exactly. I'm absolutely famished. I haven't eaten for days.
Yeah, so she basically drags Elric along with her, as she has done the entire book.
And indeed, Elric's just like being dragged along like a small child.
Yeah. He's like a dog. It was like, but no, bones.
Oh,
but no, look, hot dog. Oh, but no, look, another dog. Yeah.
Some guy with a sword.
But they arrive at the Pearl. It's massive. It's happened quite quickly, this.
It is,
frankly.
yeah, thank God. So we've had to troll through like thousands of pages of...
Yeah, by thousands, I mean about 120.
Seems like thousands.
Yeah.
But yeah.
They arrive at the Pearl. It's massive.
It is big.
Yeah. Queen Sow is there, as is the bashed up Pearl Warrior. What?
And hello.
Yeah.
The Seneschal's, he's back.
Yeah. So they're convinced that Elric and Una want to nick the Pearl.
They do.
But Una appeals to them that the Holy Girl must be saved. Although we, the readers, know that Elric is really there for the Pearl. But Una...
Yeah, is he though?
Is he there?
Is he? I don't think he is.
Yeah, I think he knows. It all works out quite nicely for him. We'd have to test that.
He's got a criteria, hasn't he? He's got Holy Girl first.
Yeah.
The Pearl.
But if it came down to self-preservation, this never gets tested, fortunately, because everything falls into place for Elric quite neatly.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah. And it is amusing that a little bit later on, Elric is basically saying, well, I don't know what I did. And Una's saying, oh, no, you were really important.
You were brilliant.
Yeah, you were great, honest.
All those bits you did.
Yeah. It was fabulous.
Can't remember any of them. But
we found that he does play his part in what essentially is a charade or a charade, which is all manipulated by Una.
But then he also nearly blurts out like a massive buffoon, doesn't he? So basically it's equivalent of like Una winking at him like that.
Yeah. Stay with me, Elric.
Yeah, we well did this.
Yeah. Stay with me. Don't get distracted by the burger stand over there.
Yeah.
Everything's cool.
Whatever you do.
So Una's appealing to them that the Holy Girl must be saved. And we're still not entirely clear on what Una's course of action might be at this point, but it's moot anyway, as through the walls of the chamber emerge a load of the tattooed sorcerer adventurers.
They do.
The representatives and the fist of the Council of Six and the other one. At this point, Elric says, we cannot fight them.
Yes.
There are too many of them.
Which shouldn't sound like Elric, does it?
No, and he prepared himself for death. So this is like a flimsy Doctor Who cliffhanger.
Yeah.
Whereas like, oh no. But we know full well that Elric so far has had very few problems butchering gods and idiots.
Yeah.
So it's oh god, no, we'll never win this one.
He's never held back, is he?
Yeah, we're never going to win this one. So,
again, Una.
Yeah. Chapter 2, The Destruction in the Fortress. Then Una had mounted a silver horse and raised a silver sword. She called out, "Elric, do as I do," and had urged the stallion into a canter so that its hooves rattled like thunder in the chamber. Prepared to die with courage, even at the moment of apparent triumph, Elric climbed into his saddle, took a spear in the hand that held the reins, and with his sword already swinging, charged against the invaders. Only as the crowded around him, axes, maces, spears and swords lifted to attack, did Elric understand that Una's action had not been one of mere desperation. These half-shades moved sluggishly, their eyes were misted, they stumbled and their blows were feeble. The slaughter now became sickening to him. Following her example, he hacked and stabbed from side to side, almost mechanically. Heads came away from bodies like rotten fruit. Limbs were sliced as easily as leaves from a stick. Torsos collapsed under the thrust of spear or sword. Their viscous blood, already the blood of the dead, clung to weapons and armour, and their cries of pain were pathetic to Elric's ears. If he had not sworn to follow Una, he would have ridden back and let her continue the work alone. There was little danger to them as the veiled men continued to pour through the walls and be met by sharp steel and cunning intelligence. Behind them, around the column of the Pearl, the courtiers watched. They clearly did not know what a mediocre threat the two silver-armoured warriors confronted. At last it was done. Decapitated, limbless bodies were piled around the hall. Elric and Una rode out of that slaughter and they were grim, unhappy, nauseated by their own actions. "It is done," said Una. "The sorcerer adventures are slain." So yeah, still easy.
Yeah, and then "You truly are heroes." Queen Sow came down the steps towards them, her eyes bright with admiration, her arms outstretched. Yeah.
But once again, it's Moorcock, in a way, laughing at the tropes of heroic fantasy, isn't it? It's the cliffhanger. It's like,
there's millions of...
the dread of it. And it's like, no, it's a heroic fantasy character, therefore he butchers them all, or they butcher them all.
He kills them real good. Yeah. Well, they both do.
But the courtiers of the Pearl, like Queen Sow, are impressed enough. The seneschal cries with relief.
He does, thank God.
Pearl Warrior, a.k.a. Alnec Kreb, as we now know, it's pretty much confirmed, dissolves with a sigh.
He does.
"There is no more for me," he said. Alnac's dead eyes had nothing but resignation in them. "This is for dissolution," and he fell forward onto the marble floor, his armour all broken, his limbs sprawling, and there was no longer any flesh on him, only bone, so that what was left of the Pearl Warrior resembled little more than the inedible remains of a crab, the supper of some sea giant.
That's the one I was thinking of.
Yeah,
unlucky.
Queen Sow gives Elric a hug and takes on her true form. She is, and has been all along, the projection of Veradia, the holy girl.
Have on a mo.
Yeah,
exactly.
Job done. Right, so here we go. Cthulhu, West Coast, TIPA. Oh, saints preserve us. I have a bad feeling about this.
Yeah.
I actually had a third can of this, and as it's Paul Hillary, the Lapsed Gamer's belated 50th birthday, it was actually a wee while ago, I'm sending can 3 to the Lapsed Gamer. So unlucky, Paul.
Yeah.
It's headed your way.
Sorry.
Here we go. Oh, sweet Jesus and all the baby angels.
Woo! Gary Davis. What a mate. Oh, hell. Hell's teeth preserve us.
Yeah, I can feel myself drying out.
It's a...
Why do people want this? This was £8 a can.
That's ridiculous.
And don't get me wrong, it's a fucking beautiful can.
It's some quality artwork.
Yeah, the Cthulhu illustration on the can label is really cool, but shit the bed. This is horrible.
Who in the world went, yeah, we really need a 12% beer right now?
It's basically barley wine.
But with a slight tinge of IPA.
Yeah. Well, so basically it's an extremely dry and bitter barley wine.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
I might just shave my tongue after this.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's try and power on through the pain.
Right. This is where you get the crux of the whole book, though,
Yes,
isn't it? So
it
this
is.
particular...
And everything after this is like wrap up,
yeah,
isn't it?
Yeah, but with hilarious consequences.
But there is some really, really good stuff in here which ties all of those notes together. It ties together the tapestry of all those bits and pieces that we've been talking about. Because essentially, and something I really love about it is that the penny drops for Elric that most of what is experienced was projections of a child's dream.
Yeah, that's
through this format of these 5 or 6 layers of consciousness, these lands.
Yeah.
And the penny drops that actually these child dreams have been manipulated by Una's understanding of the rules of dream thievery for her to be able to essentially fulfill the quest.
Yeah.
So she's been manipulating the child's perception of her own dreams.
Yeah.
But what I found really amusing about it is that once the penny drops for Elric, he's embarrassed to realise that he's standing there wearing the child's idealistic picture of what her fairy tale version of a storybook's hero's armour is.
Yeah.
So he's wearing Chemog Bomb's cool fairy tale armour. And once he realises this, he kind of looks down and looks at himself and is mildly embarrassed.
Yeah.
Which I think is really cool. And very unlike the Elric in any of the other stories.
Well, that's the whole thing about the book, though, isn't he? He's very much like a different Elric, as you said, and up until a certain point.
Yeah.
And it's just quite interesting. It's almost like he's not actually a very strong character in this at all, is he?
No.
He's very much a passenger in a lot of ways.
He is, but Una manipulates his presence to do what she needs him to do.
Yeah.
So Una demonstrates to the girl that whoever the villains are, whoever the opposition is, have no real power because her and Elric defeat them, and she uses Elric in that manner too. So she uses the visual almost of Elric butchering all of the sorcerer adventurers to give the girl confidence that they're not overtly powerful anymore. And they don't have any hold over her.
But they're also there not to steal the pearl and actually to save her, isn't it? So, as they said, the only 3 real people are Una, Elric and Varadia in the whole thing.
Yeah.
And that's why Elric and Una were able to do what they did.
Yeah.
And it's all that thing of like, it's a child's dream and a child's view of heroism and villainy.
Yeah.
And she made Pearl Warrior and brought back Shamog Borm.
Yeah.
It's quite interesting because it does turn the book entirely on its head, doesn't it?
It does. And not only that, I think it turns the Elric character on its head as well, because this wrap-up of the dream section with all the positivity and wholesomeness of the child seeing Elric as a fairy tale saviour.
Yeah.
It brings a different dimension to the Elric saga, but the Elric character as well. It's positive, it's quite playful, and it's less grim and nihilistic.
And also, he's a bit more rounded, isn't he? He's not like kind of just moaning a lot about his fate. It's like, get on with it. Yeah, you're all right.
It's less dark, it's less nihilistic, but now it's wrapped up, we've got that to come, of course.
Yes. Which
we revert to classic Elric.
Yeah, and they're the bits I remember as a kid.
But even then, it's a hugely heightened version of vengeful Elric.
Bonkers,
it's so over the top.
Yeah.
And again, that's what I remember as well.
Yeah.
Because I think we're similar in that our memories of this... When I first suggested that after Elric of Melniboné we don't skip to Sailor on the Seas of Fate, that we stick with it and do Fortress of the Pearl, I was doing it with a slight lump in my throat that we wouldn't get to Sailor on the Seas of Fate, and I think you were like, oh, do we have to?
Yeah. But the thing is, reading that the book 3, so this bit we're talking about, I don't remember any of that when I read it. I didn't remember like it's all Baradia's dream manipulation. I didn't realise kind of all of the fact that it's basically her and Una's kind of perceptual battle in the Dreamlands and using Elric as this kind of heroic character who was there to save. And it is quite interesting. And Elric does, to be fair to him, fair to the lad, it's not been the Dreamland before, has he?
No.
So, you can in some ways a bit like, hey up.
Yeah.
But he does, yeah. It's probably the first time where Elric's not in charge or the SME, to use a work phrase.
Yeah.
You know, he's the kind of apprentice, isn't
Yeah.
he? He's the moon.
He's the companion
Yeah.
in this
Totally,
scenario, isn't he?
Yeah.
Until we get to
The end.
the end.
Where, way up.
The grand finale.
Yeah, which
I think when I read this at the time, I probably didn't get all of this because there's a point where, and I'm still the same now, if I'm reading a book I'm finding a slog, I end up reading it robotically.
Yeah.
And I'm just scanning the words to get through it.
Yeah, and going, they seem to be crapping on about something.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's move it on.
So I think the texture of this was wasted on idiotic 16-year-old me or whatever.
Yeah, and I think the fact is, like this version, which was the first Elric novel for a decade, and it was completely different because it was really thick.
Yeah.
And you like, but normally there's like, you read them about, a day. And now I've got to read a proper story. It's going on for ages.
Yeah. On to chapter 3, celebrations at the Silverflower Oasis. They wake up back at the bronze tent.
They do.
There is much joyful weeping.
Back at Glastonbury, but with weeping.
Yeah, lots of weeping.
Yeah.
Elric and Una basically leave them all to it to get reacquainted with the now awake holy girl.
Yeah.
And we do get some really nice character work between the two of them as they're reflecting on their adventure, and I think to an extent Una's reaction to him saying he has to... Let's read it.
We have a dream in common now, said Elric. His voice was gentle, full of affection. I think the memory will be a good one, Lady Una.
She reached to hold his face in her hands. You are wise, Prince Elric, and you are courageous, but there is a certain kind of ordinary experience you lack. I hope that you are successful in finding it.
This is why I wander this world, my lady, and leave my cousin Yerkun as regent on the ruby throne. I am aware of more than one deficiency.
I am glad we dreamed together, she said.
You lost your true love, I think, Elric told her. I am glad if I helped you ease the pain of that parting.
She was baffled for a moment, then her brow cleared. You speak of Alnat Kreb. I was fond of him, my lord, but he was more a brother to me than a lover.
Elric became embarrassed. Forgive my presumption, Lady Una.
She looked up into the sky. The blood moon had not yet waned. It cast its red rays onto the sand, onto the gleaming bronze of the tent, where Raik Nassim welcomed his daughter back to him. I do not love easily in the way you mean. Her voice was significant. She sighed. Do you still plan to return to Melniboné and your betrothed?
I must, he said. I love her, and my duty lies in Emir.
Sweet duty. Her tone was sarcastic, and she took a step or two away from him. Her head bowed, her hand on her belt. She kicked at the dust, the colour of old blood.
Elric had disciplined himself against his heart's pain for too long. He could only stand and wait until she walked back to him. And now she was smiling.
Well, Prince Elric, would you join the Dream Thieves and make this your living for a while?
Elric shook his head. It is a calling which requires too much of me, my lady. Yet I am grateful for what this adventure has taught me, both about myself and about the world of dreams. I still understand only a little of it. I am still not wholly sure where we travelled or what we encountered. I do not know how much in the dream world was Lady Veradia's creation and how much was yours. It was as if I witnessed a battle of inventors. And did I contribute? I do not know.
Oh, without you, believe me, Prince Elric, I think I would have failed. You have seen so much of other worlds, and you have read more. It does not do to analyse too closely the creatures and places one encounters in the dream realm. But be assured, you made your contribution. More, perhaps, than you will ever know.
Yeah, so I mean, that Battle of the Inventors, that's the book, isn't it?
Yeah.
That sums it up. It reminds me as well, because Una is the main protagonist in it. It reminds me of Friendship of the Rose as well.
Yeah.
When Rose is basically the instigator of the whole thing as well.
It's... I love the bit on that first page that we read where it says, you are wise, Prince Elric, and you are courageous, but there is a certain kind of ordinary experience you lack.
Yeah.
I hope that you're successful in finding it. And basically says, well, yeah, that's what I'm trying to do on my gap year.
Yeah.
This is what I'm really trying to do. And it's really quite tragic that we know, because we've read The Sailor on the Seas of Fate, that his gap year is a complete fucking failure.
That's a disaster, isn't it?
It's an absolute disaster. And it ends up essentially with him, as we So we did the Dreaming City as our first proper episode. It ends up with a complete disaster, with the death of his betrothed, with the sack of his city, and even then, all of his mates who he got together to sack the city, most of them die horribly by dragonfire.
Yeah.
So that little bit, once you know what's to come, is really quite sad, because Elric is such a tragic character, but he has self-awareness about his failures, and he has, in his own way, noble intentions.
Yeah, he's definitely more of a hero in this book,
Yeah.
I think, and that's setting it up, isn't it, for later, where they always talk about Elric being an anti-hero.
Yeah.
But the stuff he does, it's not really selfishly motivated, is it?
No, and I don't know if anti-hero is even correct, because it's not like he's evil, it's just his motivations...
He can be, though.
But that's more driven by his... there's something about his culture where, well, he doesn't suffer full gladly, does he?
No.
And the fact that he has a necromantic sword, which is also very keen to get stuck in and fuck things up for him. It's not an ideal situation.
It doesn't help. It's that thing of certain people can be together in a relationship, and it's not good for either of them.
Yeah.
But they're drawn together.
Yeah.
Him and Stormbringer. Yeah. Not ideal, is it?
No, not at all. So the Baradim interrupt anyway, and the celebrations and joy are unconfined.
Oh, yeah.
And there's a couple of really fucking great paragraphs here, and I love it. It says they had only walked a few more paces before they were lifted onto the shoulders of the crowd, and soon they were borne, laughing and infected by the general joyousness, over the desert towards the Silver Flower Oasis. And again, this feeds into this very different perspective on Elric as a genuine hero.
Yeah, yeah.
The celebrations began at once, as if the Baradim and all the other desert clans had been preparing for this moment. Every kind of delicious food was prepared until the air was rich with an enormous variety of mouth-watering smells, and it seemed all the great spice warehouses of the world had been made to release their contents. Cooking fires blazed everywhere, as did great brands and lamps and candles, and from out of the Casbah Mool or Cariz, overlooking the great oasis, rode the Alum-Rit guardians in all the glory of their ancient armour, their red-gold helmets and breastplates, their weapons of bronze and brass and steel. They had huge forked beards and massive turbans wound around the spikes of their helms. They wore surcoats of elaborate brocade and cloth of silver, and their high boots were embroidered with designs almost as intricate as those on their shirts. They were proud, good-humoured men who rode at the sides of their wives, who were also armoured, and carried bows and slender spears. All had soon mingled with the enormous crowd, who had erected a large platform and placed a carved chair upon it, and sat the smiling Varadia in the chair, so that all could see the holy girl of the Baradim, restored to her clan, bringing back their history, their pride, and their future. I love that. Sometimes
It's good, isn't it?
I read stuff and I can almost taste and smell it so badly.
Yeah.
I want to be there.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
Who were these Guardian fellas and what they've been up to?
Exactly, they're just thrown in, aren't they?
they're
It's just a bit of detail. Moorcock's thought, I haven't described any funky clothes for a while.
Yeah, let's these
get
lot
some in there.
Yeah, they're massive turbans.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Right, Nassim's still crying. He's so
he hasn't
chuffed.
stopped, hasn't he?
No, he's so pleased to have him back. He's thanking Elric and Una. And he makes a promise too.
He does.
He says, your names will be remembered by the Baradim for all time, and whatever favour you shall ask of us, so long as it be honourable, as we know it shall, then we shall grant it to you. If you are in danger 10,000 miles away, you will send a message to the Baradim, and they will come to your aid. Meanwhile, you must know that you have freed the spirit of a good-hearted child from dark captivity. Now, I've got to say, I know this is written after the majority of the Elric stories, but if only he'd actually drawn on that favour, it could have come in handy on quite a few occasions.
Yeah, exactly.
And Elric quips, Nassim offers them gold and riches and treasures, but Elric quips that there's a dude back in Quasar's that's promised him half an empire if he delivers the pearl.
Yeah.
I wonder if it's as good as his promise. We'll soon find out. But he also asks Elric if he was able to sustain himself in the dream realm without pain. And suddenly it dawns on Elric that he realises the benefits of being out of his body rather than out of his head on elixirs, herbs, and other bits and pieces, and even the souls of the slain. He's experienced during the dream realms this period of healthiness and a feeling of
calm.
being and calm and being free of it all. And I think that's another really lovely bit that's really a great Elric moment where he for just a period of time, he forgot how frail and weak and ill he tends to be.
Yeah.
He loves it, and he views this as, so this is what ordinary life is like, to not be this guy who relies on false means. So it's quite identifiable, isn't it? Because, you know, I'm in my 50s now. I'm on various types of medication in order to survive day by day. And there are times when I suppose in a way it's inverse, but do you ever think back to the days, I do, but do you ever think back to the days when we were skint in our early 20s, but we were able to game whenever we wanted and get 10 people around a table and play a game, scrape up enough dosh to get either some weed or 8 cans of Orange Boom or some carbon white, and about the most stressful thing we had to do every fortnight was sign on? I do. I think back to those days and I realise it's a rose-tinted retrospective and probably cuts out all the shit bits.
Oh, yeah, of course it is. The mind-numbing tedium of everything. The depression of not... Yeah, it wasn't great. I think, but also, just when you're talking about all that stuff about Elric, how different a hero is that to most books.
Yeah.
The fact that it's probably more the kind of flawed hero is probably a bit more so now, but at the time, you know, you've got this guy who, as you said, needs something to survive.
Yeah.
Whether it's a sword or all these herbs or this, and this is the first time in his life he's been all right.
Yeah. This is the weird thing about reading this book now, is I know a lot of people say, and there's a lot of friends of this podcast who've said it as well, that when they were reading Elric stories in their teens, they really identified with the Elric character as being, you know, an outcast with issues and problems and the whole goth emo angle
there was
of
that
Elric.
as well, wasn't there? Yeah.
But I identify with this Elric. I identify with this Elric who, as opposed to all of the other heroic characters who are always fit and vital and overcome all the problems, and if they are afflicted, it's usually a temporary...
Apart from Coram.
No, but I mean non-Moorcock characters in heroic fantasy. If they are afflicted, it's a temporary thing that they're cured of.
Yeah.
Whereas Elric is permanently afflicted. He uses a variety of crutches and supports, but for this brief moment in this book, when he's with Una in the dream realms, and for a short time afterwards, he feels completely lifted of all of this. And it takes someone to ask, how you feeling?
Yeah.
That he's like, oh shit.
Which makes the juxtaposition of the last chapter slightly different.
Yeah. So Elric lounges under a pine tree with Una, acknowledging the temptation to live in a more simple reality than his own. And, you know, fair play I say to that, but destiny must draw him forward. He must go back. He feels an obligation to the boy and I.
But he did. Before that, though, Una takes away some of his pain out of his dream, which is really nice.
Yeah.
So she basically takes away some of his worst dreams. And the dream thief began to sing. She sang a lullaby. She sang of a sickly child and a grieving father. She sang of happiness found in simple things. And Elric slept. And that... So she's taken away some of the pain that he feels about her, about his father. And his father is never there, and he blames Elric for killing his true love, etc. So that's quite a nice bit, isn't it?
Yeah, and it says, when he woke the next morning, it was with a light heart and an easy conscience, and only the faintest memories of his adventures in the dream realms, a continuing affection for Una, and a determination to reach Quasarshart as soon as possible, and take to Lord Go what Lord Go most desired in all the world.
Yeah, and Una's good character.
Yeah, it's really great. Yeah. And Una offers him the pearl.
Yeah.
And she gives it to him willingly, which he's quite surprised by. But she says, you know what, this was a product of the dream. It was a product, technically, of the people of Quasarshart and used to inflict pain. Take it back. And she rides with him partway to Quasarshart. Chapter 4. Certain matters resolved in Quasarshart. Damn straight they're resolved.
Hello.
Yeah. Elric arrives and he's knackered. He's out of elixir. He's ready to drop.
He looks terrible,
He looks terrible. Lord Gorfazi greets him. He's still a massive, oily, bearded wanker.
He is, to be fair.
He's like a hirsute Christopher Biggins.
He is, yeah. Possibly.
But Elric's weakness, it's a ploy. It's just a ploy. And he exacts a pretty terrifying revenge.
Furious anger.
Yeah. He gives Lord Go the pearl and he says, right, so where's my half this empire?
Yeah.
Lord Go realises that he doesn't need the elixir anymore. It's like, whatever.
He doesn't for a bit, though. He taunts him quite a bit, doesn't he?
He does. He's been a wanker.
Yeah.
And he basically says, oh, no, the elixir was enough. You don't need all the money.
Yeah.
You're not a local. You're not one of us. You ain't getting nout.
But the thing is, when Elric's like lying down and Go thinks he's in charge, Elric starts taunting him a bit, and he's like, the worm is so proud to be the king of the dunghill.
Yeah.
Which is brilliant.
Yeah.
Which is making Lord Go a bit cross.
Yeah. I think Lord Go's taunts to him as well are quite good. Greetings, Elric of Nadsokar. Greetings, white-faced clown thief.
Clown thief? Well, you know, hit you so hard.
Yeah. But, Elric is just sandbagging.
Yeah. He's well done him like a kipper, isn't he?
He has. And he essentially makes Lord Go attempts to swallow the pearl.
Giving him the elixir to wash it down.
Yeah, which at this point we realise the pearl is still of quite some size, because when Varadia realises back in the Dream Realms and they kill all the sorcerer adventurers, she smashes the big pearl.
Yeah.
And there's still like a fist-sized pearl inside.
There is.
So this is what Elric makes Lord Go try to swallow. Unsuccessfully, sadly.
Well, not sadly, but yeah.
You know, this chapter might be one of my favourites in all of the Elric saga, because even though Lord Go is a little bit panto, he's a little bit vicious panto, Elric in full-on vengeful Angel of Death mode, as he brutally punishes Go for his duplicity. Even then, he still gives the council one last chance to parley.
He does.
Which, of course, they spurn in their absolute arrogance. To cut... Well, it's a fairly short chapter. Cut a short story short, he slaughters the lot of them, plus all of the guards, plus all the rest of the sorcerer adventurers, and then goes to rampage through the city, killing anybody he comes across.
Yeah, basically.
Anybody who doesn't flee, he butchers and devotes their blood and souls to his Lord Arioch. And then when he's done, and when Stormbringer is sated, he just throws the pearl in a gutter.
He does. So, I mean, it was like... it was a slaughter to make all other events pale into insignificance. It was a slaughter that would never be forgotten in all the annals of the desert peoples, who'd learn of it from those who fled Quasathat that night, flinging themselves into the waterless desert rather than face the white laughing demon on a Baradi horse, who gallops up and down their lovely streets and taught them what price of complacency and unthinking cruelty could be.
Yeah.
It's quite full on, isn't it?
It's full on. It's Elric on steroids.
Yeah.
It's vengeful Elric on steroids. There's some really nice bits where the council still think that Melniboné is sunk.
Yeah.
And
and they insult him a bit.
And they insult him. But Elric essentially, he finishes the war. The war between Quasarshart and Melniboné kind of ground to a halt, and 1,000 years went by. And Elric concludes the war by basically butchering everybody.
Yeah, he did not look back at the city, which, in the name of his ancestors, had been conquered at last. On his own.
Yeah. So we were saying earlier on, is Elric actually evil? There is a line here. It says, he killed without mercy, without distinction, without cruelty. He killed as a mad wolf kills, and as he killed, he laughed.
So he's quite...
Yeah, okay, so he has his moments. I think it's fair to say.
Yeah, he's a bit of a wrong one.
And that's essentially the end.
But wait 1 minute.
Hang on a minute. 5. An epilogue at the waning of the blood moon. This is essentially Una hearing of his vengeance and being sad. But she does have a fascinating exchange with Varadia.
She does.
About the nature of dreams and creation, and how the pearl came to be a real thing. Una paused and looked down into the water, which reflected the faint pink disk of the moon. An oyster, threatened by intrusion from without, seeks to isolate that threat by forming the thing around it that eventually becomes a pearl. Sometimes this is how it happens. But other times the will of humanity is so strong, the desire for something so intense, that they will bring into existence that which was thought until then to be impossible. It's not unusual, Varadia, for a dream to be made reality. This knowledge is one of the reasons why my respect for humanity is maintained, in spite of all the cruelties and injustices I witness in my travels. I think I understand, said the holy girl. Oh, you will understand all of this very soon, Una assured her, for you are one of those capable of such creation. A few days later, Una was ready to ride away from the Silver Flower Oasis towards Elware and the unmapped east. Varadia spoke to her for the last time. I know you have a further secret, she said to the dream thief. Will you not share it with me? Una was astonished. Her regard for the girl's sensitive intelligence increased. Do you want to talk more about the nature of dreams and reality? I think you carry a child, Una, said Varadia directly. Is that not so? Una folded her arms and leaned against her horse. She shook her head in frank good humour. It is true that all the wisdom of your people is accumulated in you, young woman. The child of one you have loved and who is lost to you? Aye, said Una. A daughter, I think. Maybe even a brother and sister, if the omens are properly interpreted. More than pearls can be conceived in dreams, Varadia. And with the father ever know his offspring? Gently asked the holy girl. Una tried to speak and discovered that she could not. She looked away quickly towards distant Quasarshart. Then, after a few moments, she was able to force herself to answer. Never, she said. OMG.
Oh, what?
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 Basically setting up the Moonbeam Roads trilogy. Which, weirdly, when was this? This was late 80s, wasn't it? When did The Dream Thief's Daughter come out?
Oh, that was way later.
I was like, so this is planting the seed for something that probably came out about 15 years later.
This one's 1990.
Yeah.
1989.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure Dream Thief's Daughter was...
It was definitely 90s. It was late.
Yeah.
It's almost 2000.
I think it was 2000.
Because he did that thing with Storm...
Constantine.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Silverheart.
Yeah.
Silverheart, yeah.
Which is supposed to be a computer game, wasn't it?
So it sets up what's now labelled as the Moonbeam Roads trilogy and the Golanx collection, all of which I think have undergone name changes.
Yeah.
I think originally it was The Dream Thief's Daughter, or was it White Wolf's Son?
White Wolf's Son.
It was White Wolf's Son, then it was relabelled The Dream Thief's Daughter.
Yeah.
Skraeling Tree was relabelled The Albino in America, which is a much worse name.
It's terrible.
And then I think it might have been relabelled again.
Yeah, it's got to be Skraeling Tree. I've not read Skraeling Tree.
Yeah.
Ever.
And the third one, I forget the...
The third one was the one with Hawkmoon in it.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, Hawkmoon and Hitler and various other craziness.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
Yeah.
They had the Von Becks in there.
Yeah. And, of course, they comprise the third volume in the Saga editions.
Right, yeah, okay.
So the Saga editions, volume 1, which is the one I'm reading from, is Elric of Melniboné up to... Let's have a look. Elric of Melniboné, Fortress of the Pearl, Sailor on the Seas of Fate, Weird of the White Wolf, plus One Life Furnished in Ellie Moorcock by Neil Gaiman as an intro.
Good story.
And the Elric Saga, A Reader's Guide by John Davey as an extra, which is great. The second volume, which I have over there, is everything else up to Stormbringer. And then the third volume, which is the massivest, is the Moonbeam Roads trilogy. So that's the Elric Saga. And then, of course, unhelpfully, he goes and produces another novel, which now has to sit separately and fit between volumes 1 and 2. So the entire Elric Saga has already got one that doesn't fit in, but slots in between. So that's pretty cool. But final thoughts on Fortress of the Pearl.
One thing before we get to final thoughts, I just want to, in the interest of bringing like modern technology to the podcast, I put in earlier today in Chat GPT, write me a quick summary of Book 3 of Fortress of the Pearl. Right, so first thing it came back was Hawkmoon was fighting King Juan, but didn't bear any resemblance to the actual stories.
Yeah.
So when Hawkmoon isn't in Fortress of the Pearl, it's Elric. He was like, sorry about that. What I meant to say was Elric was fighting Thilib Kana, and the best bit for me was some spider-like beings called the Vadhog.
Oh.
My last question to ChatGPT is, do you actually know anything about this book? And it came back good. No, sorry. Absolutely brilliant.
Fantastic.
So I was trying to do a quick, crib it for me just so I've got some very quick notes. And in the end, it was like, nah, sorry, I've no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah, okay.
What I've done is just like grabbed anything I can find on the internet to with Moorcock,
Yeah,
put it into one story, which doesn't make any sense.
right. Therefore, we reject ChatGPT
So
as a tool.
So AI for Michael Moorcock podcasting
Yeah.
purposes, that's a strong no from me.
Okay.
Back to the book.
Yeah. Final thoughts. I mean, we've already said to a degree how our opinions of it may have changed.
Oh, totally changed, yeah. I think even reading the last kind of book changes my opinion on it. I think it's a really interesting take on Elric. I still think it'd probably be a better book if Una was the main character in it, which she still probably is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of enjoyed it a lot more.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
Some of it was very sluggish and plodding, I think.
Yeah, oh, here's some fire beetles.
Yeah.
Here's some snout-faced women.
Yeah, here's a rabbit dude with trousers.
Not the rabbit dude with trousers.
Well, we like him.
I love the rabbit
but we
dude with
don't
trousers.
need him, do we?
I think it's sad that he was done and
Yeah.
dusted in a page and a half.
Yeah,
that.
Yeah, he came, he shouted, he got killed.
Yeah.
But I think from an Elric kind of character perspective, it was good. I think it kind of changed him a lot. And it's the only, well, apart from the first book, it's the only book where he's not got Stormbringer all the way through it.
Yeah. Yeah. I really, really like it. And my opinion of it is completely transformed by this reread. And unlike some others which I read at the time, then maybe reread in the 90s or even the early 2000s. So some of them I might have not have read for 15 or 20 years. I know the second Coram trilogy I definitely read about 10 years ago, maybe even slightly less. But this is definitely one I haven't read since it came out.
No, same here. Definitely.
Or reread since it came out. And my opinion of it is completely done a 180. And I really dug it. I think it's great. And it's funny, when in the early days of the podcast, I had Nathan Gouljaz on, and he was the Australian guy who records like power metal under the name Coram.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember having a conversation about him when we were talking about it, and he said Fortress of the Pearl was the first Moorcock book he ever read, and it sucked him into Moorcock.
Yeah.
And at the time, I remember thinking, holy shit, if Fortress of the Pearl had been the first Moorcock I'd ever read, I might not have ever read any more.
Yeah, possibly, yeah.
But you know what? I've got to say now, I kind of see where he was coming from. It's just a really, really skillful, in some ways, deconstruction of the tropes of heroic fantasy, but also his own tropes that he relies on so much, and it's quite playful. And I really dug it.
Yeah.
I think having read book 3 again, I could probably, if I had the time, I could probably go back to the beginning, reread it, and probably get more out of it.
Yeah, I think so. I think the fact that, if the entire book is based, especially the dream worlds, is two people trying to manipulate reality.
Yeah.
It makes it a lot more interesting.
And now it just goes, buh.
Yeah, it was still there. Am
I actually being useful here?
Yeah, as long as
I
I've
don't
got
know.
voluminous pantaloons on, I'm all right.
Yeah.
But and the kind of the other side of it, it's a bit more interesting. Kind of some of the kind of mythology and setting is a bit more Eastern, isn't it? As well. Yeah, it reminds me of Dune in that kind of that aspect, which it takes it completely away from European Middle Ages kind of setting, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Gives a bit of colour to it.
Yeah.
Bit Glastonbury. But you can imagine it visually, it's a lot more interesting, I think. So
yeah, it's quite vivid, isn't it?
Yeah, you can imagine certain scenes really vividly and cinematic would look really good. There's still bits that are a bit plodding for me, but I enjoyed it so much more.
Yeah.
A lot
So,
better.
I mean, Moorcock's probably written this when he's knocking on the door of 50.
Yeah.
It's certainly in his late 40s, and it's...
Was it the first time he'd gone back to write an Elric story, though?
It was... Yeah,
since the 80s.
It said first Elric in 10 years, didn't it?
Yeah, so it must be since the 80s.
Yeah.
And probably the 80s was probably Elric at the end of time or something random like that. It wasn't kind of... It was probably short stories or something.
Yeah. So
his first novel for, 10 years.
Yeah.
And he's probably gone back to what makes... He might have gone back and gone, what makes Elric interesting as a character? And, how can you play on that, I suppose, isn't it?
Or it could be that he's been writing his Kernel Piat sequence
Yeah.
and some other things like Mother London and stuff like that. And his publisher said, you know what, we need a bestseller.
Yeah.
Because whilst those books are good books, they won't sell in the same volumes as an Elric novel. So perhaps his publisher said, you know what, give us an Elric novel. And he's like, well, all right, but I'll do it on my own terms.
Yeah.
And I'm going to have some fun with it.
Yeah. Well, totally. But that's what he's always said, isn't it? If that's his best-selling character.
Yeah.
So he will do that.
Yeah. And why not?
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. Fair play to him.
Yeah. So that was The Fortress of the Pearl.
It was.
And I think we need to just have a few words on that Dream Realms supplement for the Elric of Melniboné role-playing game. Yeah, so I gave it a cursory glance.
I've got half a can.
Yeah, I've managed to get my last half into my glass, so I'm determined to chew my way through it. Even though, for the most part, I'm saying, stuff it up your arse, Cthulhu.
You massive knobheads.
Yeah.
Right, so I think two things.
Yeah.
If we approach this, so the dream worlds as a role-playing kind of arena landscape, and then Mongoose, what you on about?
Yeah, so I've got 2 points. And the first one is very similar in that I think the Dream Realms is a really, really great setting for gaming, for my style of GMing.
You think?
Yes. Because I'm a lazy GM.
Yeah, okay.
And making shit up on the fly suits my style of GMing. And for stuff like this, making shit up on the fly that's dreamy and weird would work.
Yeah, I can kind of get that.
So, you remember the game I ran where it was things like the Plane of Faces, which was just a plane literally of tiny ceramic faces.
Yeah, that's weird.
That crunched underfoot, and it was only when you looked at them that you realised that they were actually distinct faces. Made that up on the spot would be perfect for this kind of crap.
It would, yeah.
Right?
Well, that would work for Corum as well.
It would. It would work for all sorts of different things. It would work for any kind of travelogue through through weird realms or different planes, which is super, super Moorcocky. Where the Mongoose thing gets it wrong, absolutely dead wrong, is when you get to like almost a bestiary page and it's got stat block for snout-faced women.
Yes.
And then it's a description, snout-faced women occupy the land of Snodor or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like, no Mongoose.
But the thing is, that's because some people cannot make shit up. So
in that case, Mongoose, give us a couple of tables to randomly generate freaky dream denizens. Don't just say snout-faced women who were part of the Holy Girl's dream. Don't make the assumption that snout-faced women are a fixture of every version of the Land of Earth, because you completely misunderstand the point of the dream realms.
But I think kind of the dream. If you're playing a dream thief, for example, it's quite hard to mechanise it, isn't it? If you play that type of game, some of that invention needs to come from the player.
Yeah.
So basically, you're a dream thief, right? Let's collaborate on it. What's the land? Because the realms are the same no matter what, don't they? In structure, so it's the land of blah 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 blah. I can't remember what they're called. They're all we went through this. Yeah. Just rewind.
Yeah.
But
I keep thinking the Land of Sodor, but that's Thomas the Tank Engine world.
But that would be cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, why not?
But you've got Myriador, all that kind of shit.
Yeah.
But right, okay. So if you give player agency, so what does it look like?
Well, this is why we have these modern storyteller type games, narrative games, don't we? And Swords of the Serpentine follows this route where it encourages the players to contribute creatively.
All the Gumshoe stuff does, because I play it a lot, so we do that a lot.
Yeah, I suppose I referenced Swords of the Serpentine just
because it's fantasy. Yeah.
It's fantasy, and it claims some Moorcockian lineage.
Yeah.
So that would play really, really well. But even if you've got characters who are not entirely comfortable doing that, like frankly the people we game with when we game face to face here, they don't necessarily buy into that so much. unless it's something like Tales from the Loop, where they can identify with being a
Yeah,
child
yeah.
in the 80s,
Yeah,
for example.
exactly. Yeah,
Or the Ramsey game we did years ago with Stu, Sarah, and
yeah,
Yaki,
yeah.
which was, again, we could all
It
identify
was
with what it
80s
was
again,
like to
wasn't
be
it? Yeah,
teenagers in the 80s.
yeah,
So it was easy. It was
yeah,
easy to do that. I think having this situation where there are no boundaries and the sky is the limit in terms of your imagination would make that more of a struggle.
Did you ever play Cthulhu Dreamlands?
No,
I haven't either. But
love the supplement. The second edition supplement,
never read
I think, is much better than the box set was. It's got a lot more stuff in there. But yeah, it's really good. But it's a similar kind of thing.
Yeah, so
If you're going to do Call of Cthulhu Dreamlands, the Dreamlands do have, the Dreamlands are different to this because they're established and there's structure.
And there's a map.
And there's a map, yeah. But still, lots and lots of latitude to say, this part of the moon,
Yeah.
rabbits with bottle green breeks, whatever, and kettles for helmets. Fuck it, why not?
Yeah.
Bring all that stuff in there.
So you're saying you need... It depends on the GM, and it also depends on the players, whether you have like a randomizer. It's not even a randomizer, it's almost like a tiered randomizer, isn't it? So
yeah, I would have had an easier time with that Dream Realm supplement if instead of just saying, "Oh look, Snoutfest women," no knocking anybody who produces role playing supplements because
it's hard work.
It's hard work. There's a lot of effort goes into it, but I just think it does tie into what we've said time and time and time again, that the role playing industry for me fails to get Moorcock.
Totally, yeah.
And this is another great example. If they'd have come up with some tables to randomly generate weird denizens of the dream realms.
Yeah.
So you could just think, well, my imagination's running a bit dry today. I'm going to roll some dice, and oh look, I have come up with, I don't know,
Forest of Bone,
3-buttocked.
Yeah, but it's that thing.
Terrapins, whatever,
It's that thing of Moorcock when he was talking about writing, about coming up with evocative kind of descriptions where you join two things that shouldn't be together.
Yeah.
So it's the City of Screaming Statues, for example. Forest of Bone. Well, he comes up with it all the time, and it's almost like, right, what have you got?
Yeah.
I mean, for me, visually, with Fortress of the Pearl, the steps thing really didn't work for me on a number of levels, because it was almost in my head like a Bosch kind of painting.
Yeah.
But it took it. I know it's not supposed to be realistic, but it just took me out of it slightly. So if that was in a game, I'd be like, right, so we've got like a 1,000-foot staircase or something. And sometimes it's quite hard for people to visualise.
Yeah.
I've had that before, playing with people online and stuff like. I don't get it.
Yeah, I think stuff like that's fine if you describe the immediacy
of
if you lead with it's 1,000 league high flight of steps.
What you see below you is various cities nestled.
That's a bit trickier. But if you lead with a description of the more immediate circumstances and surroundings, and then you develop it and say you look up and you realise that. Actually, this is just one layer of, it could almost be like a ring world, like Larry Niven's ring world. If you describe to the players, you're on the ring world, and the total surface area of the ring world is the equivalent of 10,000 Earths.
Yeah.
It's just, it's too much, it's too big, it's too vague, it's too wide, and players won't get a sense or a feeling of it. But if you establish the situation where they're in a weird fucking forest of giant mushrooms that are 120 feet tall, and there's these sunflowers, these vast sunflowers that if they turn on you, they reflect the light and it incinerates you, and establish the threat. But actually that other stuff is broader detail but more distant, and it's something that they're aware of, and that's the vast scale of the world, but you've established that on top of the immediate scale of what's around them. I think that's fine.
Yeah,
I think that's fine, because it's only the same as saying...
It's D&D sometimes.
Yeah, it's only the same as saying, you're in this village, but actually this village is part of a much broader world and a bigger cosmos.
Yeah,
but if you say to the players, right, you're in this fucking massive cosmos with 47 realms...
Yeah.
And it's like,
yeah.
What?
I don't know, I think, for me, it's weird with the Dreamlands, because it's like, whose vision of the Dreamlands is it? Is it the Dream Thief, or is the Dream Thief interpreting reality themselves?
So the Dream Thief is manipulating the situation of the Dreamland, which is, as we know, because Una is able to actually create children in her own womb, based upon things that are going on in the Dreamlands, which is like a remarkable level of power. And that's why I said earlier on, is that, in a way, when she talks about she won't betray the girl, but she'll betray Elric if necessary, is taking the stuff of Elric and creating a child or children in her own womb without consent.
Yeah,
is that a form of betrayal? But that kind of, blows up on the fact that the actual dream world itself, a GM could establish the dream world and all the contents of it. The players, the dream thieves, then use their power, skills, imagination, whatever, to manipulate the stuff of the dream world. And I think that's a really enticing.
It's an interesting
possibility.
Thought. I just don't think the rules do it. But yeah.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah.
Those supplements, no. They do not work at all. And the second thing that my observation was, it's got tables of firearms.
Yes,
because fucking guns
it is
in
interpreted. So it's included the middle marches, isn't it, or the middle march, or whatever.
Yeah. And also the Moonbeam Roads trilogy, where you've got Nazis with machine guns.
Yeah, the Von Becks.
That's all fine. Let them have guns, but don't have a fucking table of.
Yeah.
No.
It's the equivalent of the worst thing for me, because obviously I run Hawkmoon for years, but I did my homebrew version of it, and I bought Shattered Isle, and just went...
Shit, we've talked about that before, haven't we?
Yeah, and it was like, well, you've got helicopters fighting... Because somebody went, helicopters fighting ornithopters would be brilliant. It's like, no, it'd be shit. It'd be terrible, because it's completely wrong.
Well, this is another brilliant example, isn't it? Is that if you're doing a game in Tragic Millennium Europe...
Yeah.
We know that you can walk for 5 miles and look, a throbbing bridge.
Yeah, exactly.
We cross the throbbing bridge and we get high and it makes us feel miles better.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
So if you're going to do stuff, create mad shit.
Yeah,
mad shit and weird science.
And even if you can't think of mad
shit,
go
crazy.
Just have if you're going to have something you want to fight. So Moorcock did it, didn't he? Right. We've got ornithopters. Brilliant. They're a bit erratic, all that, but that's how they've basically controlled Europe.
Yeah.
How do you fight them? Massive fucking flamingos.
That's right.
Brilliant.
That's right.
Not helicopters.
But someone is writing a supplement for the Hawkmoon role-playing games. It's like, well, what I really want to write is a post-apocalyptic game where people can find a bunker in Ireland full of Bradley fighting vehicles and Apache helicopters.
Yeah. That was the whole problem about Moorcock. And even some of the French Moorcock stuff, the French Hawkmoon stuff, was they were treating it as a post-apocalyptic game as opposed to Tragic Millennium. It's the fact that it's fantasy. You've got people riding fucking, not unicorns, but horned horses. You've got your mutants, but you don't call them mutants because
you call them barragoons.
Because it takes it out of the whole. Yeah, if you read it like a post-apocalyptic book, it'd be shit.
Yeah.
But the fact that all the fantasy around the Hawkmoon stuff was ace, because it's like you've got all of the different names. You've got the Camargue. I mean, the Camargue's like, it's spelt different, but we all know it's south of France, and we know it's marsh.
Yeah.
And we know they've got the white horses there. He just went, right, what would be really ace is the Camargue, for some reason. Count Brass lives there. Yeah. Brilliant. The horses are horned. Count Brass's got loads of
weird towers.
He's got his guardians, but he's also got. So what's the Camargue got? Flamingos, right? Let's have massive flamingos, and that's what makes it interesting. Not let's fight an ornithopter with a helicopter, because it's fucking bollocks.
Well, and even when they do find ancient technology in Hawkmoon, it's a giant steel and chrome weird robot tiger monster.
Yeah.
It's not a fucking tank.
And the mutant war jaguars.
War jaguars of Asia Communista.
Brilliant.
The greatest new wave of British heavy metal album never released.
Yeah. But the fact that Asia Communista was just made up, which is brilliant as well.
Yeah.
It's like it was just like this enemy that nobody knew about.
Yeah.
And it's a stupid name, but we'll go with it.
But it's great.
Yeah.
It's lovely. I love it.
But it goes back to, Dreamlands. If you did it, you wouldn't use the mongoose rules.
No.
And it would be a totally different game to Stormbringer, or was it Stormbringer, the mongoose one? What was it?
Elric of Melbourne. There was
yeah.
2 versions, wasn't
Yeah,
there?
there was.
And that's the thing about doing something like this. If you were playing a game set in the Young Kingdoms, use whatever system, use whatever fantasy system, it doesn't matter. But the moment you cross the line into the Dream Realms, dump that system.
Yeah.
Dump BRP.
Yeah.
Altogether. Just dump it. Because the rules of the Dream Realms aren't the rules of the, inverted commas, real world. So just fucking dump it and use something else.
I think they were almost thinking it was the equivalent of like Elware and the Eastern Kingdoms, just somewhere else to adventure.
Yeah.
But it doesn't work. Cause it's completely
that's exactly
separate,
how they approached it.
Yeah, completely separate thing. And that's why it was wrong.
Yeah, and the other bad thing about it, it's that terrible mongoose grayscale period, which just destroys my eyes, and I can't cope with it.
And the problem is the covers were ace, but it's just
there is good stuff in there, but in some of the mongoose stuff, but yeah, it's highly problematic, a lot of it for me. But nobody's ever got it right. For me, something rules light and simple. We've got Black Sword Hack Ultimate Chaos Edition now, which is the 2nd edition of Black Sword Hack.
You got
lovely, that? Yeah, lovely. Rules light, simple, straightforward, very good. And also, I got the Mournblade starter set
because we did say, didn't we? We would run one each.
We did. And a few weeks ago, Goran Gligovic, who did the art for Black Sword Hack 2nd edition, and who also did those imaginary Elric storyboards, which you may have seen.
Oh, they were brilliant.
Yeah,
they were really good.
He popped into Derry and Toms a couple of weeks ago, and we had a good chat. And one of the things that he's up for, he's never played a role-playing game in his life.
Right.
One of the things he's up for is playing a game.
Excellent.
To see what it's all about. So, we'll revisit that at some point.
Yeah.
So, yes, we did say that. And the Mournblade starter set, again, I've given it a cursory glance, and it looks okay. It looks interesting enough. The flavour is good, but, I think the proof is in the pudding at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Proof is in the pudding.
Or we just ignore that and just pick another system.
Oh, we do that. Yeah, absolutely. So, to wrap up then, Fortress of the Pearl, very good. I read from the Saga Press, Elric of Melniboné Volume 1 edition.
And I read from the
old paperback.
The old paperback.
Which is still holding together.
It really is.
I've not
read it enough.
Yeah. Did you ever pick these up?
No. Mine's the Grafton Books version. Yeah. And I really love the cover on this.
The cover is really good.
Brilliant.
Of the fortress. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that the Fortress of the Pearl, or is it Quasar Chart?
It's Fortress of the Pearl. The only reason after reading it again, because it's mountains in the background.
Yes.
Because I think we had that conversation, didn't we?
We did.
Well, I really like the artwork on that. It's really good.
Yeah.
So that's,
Yeah, good. Well, a couple of recent developments. One is, I came to a realisation that as we've been going 3.5 years, and we have our patron demons who subscribe at the patron demon level, they get things like, mail outs, duplicate copies of books, and they get the copies of the journal. It occurred to me that there are some people who've been patrons for such a long time at the other tiers, they've actually contributed significantly to the upkeep of this podcast, which has been great. And some of them, I decided that we should have a threshold, which was that even if they were at the highest contribution level as a patron, that actually if they cross a threshold, then they'll get copies of the journal, whatever we just had to mail out. And actually there were 3 patrons who have actually crossed that threshold. So we're sending out mail outs to them as well.
Cool.
And I think they're both at Jugadero level, all 3 are at Jugadero level, but they've crossed that threshold. But also, I thought that because we just passed 60,000 downloads on Podbean, which doesn't account for everything, because some of it you can't track. But I thought when we did our reflections on 2 and a bit years of podcasting a couple of years ago, it was only 25,000. We're now up to 60,000. I thought, well, as we've passed 60,000 downloads, and as you are the original OG co-host on Breakfast in the Ruins, that your 60,000 download prize is a complete set of the Saga Press editions.
That's beautiful, man.
So there you go.
Oh, thanks, mate.
There for you.
That's amazing.
I'm passing them to you and putting them in your hands, but of course we can't put them back on the table.
Yes. That's amazing. Yeah, thanks for that.
Yeah, no worries.
It's really cool.
Thank you for being such a quality co-host and coming along on the journey.
And my favourite Stormbringer cover.
Yes, the Whelan Stormbringer cover. I've got that as a giant poster because it was the cover of a Sirith Ungol album.
Was it?
Yeah, they used all the Michael Whelan Elric art as their album covers. And I got the box set of the reissue, and it's got that as a huge poster, which I need to get framed. So, thank you.
That's amazing, mate. Cheers
for joining me on this journey. Cheers. Let's fucking chug back this hideous beer and then maybe drink something nice.
That'd be ace. Cheers for that, mate.
But for now, thanks again and farewell.
Yeah, what should we do next, though?
Good question. Well, you know what? That's up to you. We've done Elric. We've done Knight of the Swords.
Yeah.
What do you want to do?
I potentially would like to do... We'd have to do them in order, won't we? The Blood series, but I don't know if I don't know if I could handle the first two.
You know what? We don't have to decide now. We do not have to decide now. But we'll think of something. We'll think. Oh yeah, we could just go and do Selling Seas Fair, but we'll think of something.
Cool.
Thanks to Loz, as ever, for his good humour and co-hosting throughout our run, but also on this, our 60th full show. There appears to be a bit of numerology at play here, with this being episode 60, and following the releases of episodes 58 and 59, we tipped over 60,000 downloads on Podbean. And since our Patreon began, we've had just over 60 folks contribute to the upkeep of the podcast. So have the stars aligned in some weird way? I did wonder if the number 60 has some strange mystical significance, so after a quick search I found this. The number 60 is a sacred number symbolising divine protection from the spiritual realm. Through hard work, prayer and faith, individuals can benefit from its power to bring harmony and balance among their relationships, while also providing for their material needs. Hard work, prayer and faith. That's me out then. How about this? The 60 vibration stands for love, balance, motherhood and the home. The 0 adds a cosmic dimension about flow, cycles and the rhythms of life. It is a loving and healing vibration that creates harmony in the surroundings. 60/6 prioritises love, balance and the home. One needs a safe environment and stability. The 60/6 energy reminds us of the energies in the zodiac sign Cancer. Wait a minute, my zodiac sign is Cancer. And there was a 1 in 12 chance of that happening to be the case when I checked online about some number. And 12 is 666. Okay, it's all bollocks then. But we'll apply our own 60 rule anyway. As mentioned on the podcast, we've established a threshold at which long-term patrons will get the print copies of the journals that patron demons get, and, to keep order and balance in the grey fees, we've gone with $60 and mail-outs have gone to Jugaderos who've passed that threshold. So there, job done. We'll be back in a couple of weeks with The Queen of the Swords Book 1, which is the return of Simon Perrins. But in the meantime, thanks, as always, to our patrons. First, those without tier: Anthony Paconti, Tim Cardos, Dave Dempster and Sebastian Weetabix. And our Chaos Engineers: Andrew Cicluna, Andrew Van Ness, Anthony Porter, Benjamin Fletcher, Craig Ledley, Dave Griffiths, Dave Voxman, Gabriel Laycock, Harvey Faulkner-Aston, Jim Kirkland, Jim Knight, John W. Lays, Jules Lawrence, Lee Gary, Mal Pertwee, Mary Catherine, Matt Saltz, Menyon, Nelbert, Paul McRandall, Scott Butler, Simon Perrins and Tony Malazzo. And of course thanks to our crafty Jugaderos, Alexander Harris, Ian Stead, Loz, Taylor, Matthew Broom, Toby White, Tom Murphy, Mark Hebden, Graham Holden and Ray Otis. And finally, eternal thanks to our patron demons. First up, and new to the Don Blas, Jason Vogel. As is traditional, I dropped Jason a line to see what's what, and Jason said, I only got into Moorcock within the last couple of years. I'd done a deep dive into the Mighty Blue Oyster Cult and fell in love with all the Moorcock co-writes, but specifically Black Blade. After a quick trip to the all-knowing Wikipedia, I thought I'd give his books a go and started with the Hawkmoon series, because they were cheaper and there were less of them, and was hooked faster than you could say sorry and 'em. Currently, I'm knee-deep in the recent saga reprints of the Elric books, making my way through The Skraeling Tree. I've amassed a modest collection of novels and such, mostly those Dole editions with the Michael Whelan covers. I'm the ripe old age of 30, and arguably still my formative years. When not among the Young Kingdoms, I read a variety of non-fiction. Glenn Cook, author of the excellent Black Company series, grim dark fantasy about a company of mercenaries. Jim Butcher, specifically his Dresden Files series, Wizard Private Detective. And any throwback paperback I spy that has a really happening cover. I've been looking for a new podcast that doesn't remind me that we're very much in the throes of the tragic millennium, and every episode feels like a good hangout session with friends. I always get a good laugh out of it, and leave feeling connected to a community of other like-minded weirdos who enjoy a good drink, a good read, and a casual discussion of the multiverse. Well, thanks for finding us, Jason. We're absolutely delighted to have you along for the ride. And of course the rest of our patron demons, Andy Darby, Clarky the Cruel, Fred Quiche, Gareth Wilson, Greg Faulkner, Gwen Barlow, Imria, Jenny Stim, Jay Reeser, Joe Monty, Liam J, Miles Reed-Labato, Mort Main, Neil Burton, Paul Hillary, Randall Gatlin, Steve Round, David Lee, the OG patron Norman Beresford, and last, but never least, Robert Macmillan. Enough yakking. Don't forget you can follow us on Twitter and Instagram with the handle @BreakfastRuins. You can email us at breakfastruins@outlook.com. The webpage is breakfastintheruins.com. We have our Patreon page too. There are a few extra odds and sods on there. But for now, take care, stay safe, and we will meet again soon on the Moonbeam Roads. Oh no, I can't even find my place now. Is this because...
Relinquishing.
Right, so...
Relinquishing.
We're starting as we mean to go on, i.e. barely able to talk proper English. Honestly, officer, I've only had a few ales and a curry.
Yeah.
Well, I should turn that gain down a little bit, because we're already spiking.